Hi, this is Carol Bentley sharing 10 of the time management tips I use to get my projects done quicker and more effectively. If you've ever reached the end of your day and wondered, where did the time go? I don't seem to have achieved anything. Then knowing about these tips and the time management software I use could be rather useful to you. These tips are not new. You've probably heard them before, and most are really plain common sense. But just because they are common sense doesn't mean we always use them. So check them out. Okay, let's get started. Do you have a list? Or is it one of those techniques that you have every intention of using, but... Or perhaps you write one out, put it somewhere safe, and forget about it. Let me give you 2 good reasons for writing and using a to-do list. First of all, writing it down means you don't have to try to remember it. It leaves your mind free to concentrate, and that's crucial for me when I'm writing a sales letter. And secondly, I love the feeling of satisfaction and achievement when I tick the completed task off. And of course it means important things are tackled in good time, rather than suddenly remembering, oh, I've got to get that letter done by, and finding myself up against a tight deadline. A checklist is similar to the to-do list, but it's more for cataloguing the steps I need to do to complete a specific task. For example, I have a checklist of what I need to gather together before I start a copywriting project. Research material, info about the client, the offer, and testimonials I can use, and so on. Once the sales letter is written, I go through it with another checklist to make sure I've included everything that needs to go into a compelling letter. And I have a third checklist I use when I'm creating the order form. When all the items on my checklist are ticked off, I know I haven't missed anything and I can relax. It's a good idea to get in the habit of clearing your desk of everything that is not related to your next task. It stops you getting distracted, and it means everything you need is easily to hand. No searching through piles of papers looking for a specific item. That's my biggest problem if I don't have a clear out first. The same goes for your computer, especially the emails in your inbox. If I don't keep on top of clearing out rubbish messages and emails I've dealt with and don't need to keep, I'd miss the ones that do need a response, and that could mean upsetting a client or missing an inquiry, which is never a good thing. I organise my important emails into separate folders so I can find them easily. And I find it's better to concentrate on completing one task at a time before moving on to the next. I used to let myself get distracted and often ended up with a lot of partially done tasks at the end of the day and an intense feeling of frustration. Tell me, have you ever started closing down your computer and suddenly found an open email you thought you'd finished and sent, and realised you hadn't sent it simply because you got distracted by something else? I have, but not anymore, because the system I use now helps me to finish each task before moving on to the next. I'll share that with you a little later. Plan tomorrow's tasks today. Doing this helps me to sleep better. At the end of the day, I decide and write down the actions I plan to do the next day. It means I don't prey on my mind overnight so much, especially if I also take the time, wherever possible, to gather together the material I need to complete that task. For example, if I know I'm planning to work on a copywriting project the next day, I go through my preparation checklist to make sure I've got everything I need to write that sales letter. And by allocating a specific amount of time to that activity, I find I can focus and get more done because I know I've only got so long to do it in. You've probably come across this idea before, blocking out the time in your diary. Well, you can take it one step further. Let's say you've allocated an hour for a particular activity. When you start working on that action, start your timer for that 1 hour. And then focus on completing as much as you can in the time you've allowed. And when the timer goes off, stop. Don't spend any more time on it. But the important thing is you mustn't allow yourself to slip in a few more minutes or even hours to complete the job at that point. It's tempting. Have you ever concentrated on getting particular jobs done before you leave for a holiday break? And have you, like me, realised you've got a lot more done than you would normally, purely because you knew you couldn't go past that deadline? Well, this works on the same principle. You see, by not allowing yourself extra time, you educate and program your subconscious to focus on getting more done in the time you have set. And the more often you do this, the more efficient and effective you become. Try it for a week or so. I think you'll be surprised at just how much you do actually achieve. It's easy to waste time without realising it, especially in today's technological and connected age. So you need to limit your time stealers, especially the ones online. Social websites such as Facebook, Twitter and YouTube can be such time wasters, or they can be valuable marketing tools. If they are part of your overall marketing strategy, I suggest you allocate a set amount of time with a specific goal in mind and stick to it. If they're not part of your marketing activity, but you rather enjoy browsing and connecting, then again set yourself the amount of leisure or relaxation time you are happy to allow yourself for doing this. Web browsing and emails are another time stealer. Emails are the bane of my life. Well, they were until I took control. I realised that constantly checking, rechecking and getting distracted by incoming emails wasted a huge amount of my time. So now, as with the social websites, I set a specific time of day and amount of time when I deliberately read and reply to my emails. Again, if you decide to use this tip, don't allow yourself to overrun the time frame you've set. It's more difficult to control some other office time wasters, such as interruptions and incoming phone calls. When I'm working on a project, I do not accept phone calls and I actively discourage interruptions. Now, I appreciate you may not have anyone you can delegate your incoming calls to, in which case let them go through to voicemail. If you explain to your clients and work colleagues that in order to be more effective, you only take calls between, say, 1:30 and 2:30, and at any other time they'll go through to voicemail, where of course they are welcome to leave a message, I'm sure you'll find, in the majority of cases, they will respect that decision. Obviously you need to allocate time to return those calls, but you'll be in control of when you decide to do that. The same applies to interruptions. Let the people you work with or who report to you know they can pop in to ask questions within a set time frame. Seemingly urgent, "Have you got a minute?" type queries often miraculously resolve themselves when you are not available to consult immediately. Now, I appreciate this may not be something you can implement fully. Personally, I wouldn't get my copywriting done if I didn't insist on this way of working. It's worth a try, don't you think? You can grab another 13 handy time management tips and a bit more detail on the ones I've shared here in the Action Unleashed PDF download available on my blog. Now, earlier in this presentation I mentioned a new time management software tool I'm using and which has proved to really be very helpful. A good friend recommended the Time Machine to me a few weeks ago and I've been using it since. It's a really simple concept but has proved to be a powerful ally in controlling my daily activity. It helps me to focus on the important actions I need to complete each day. It certainly beats having a stopwatch style timer. And I love the reporting function. It's got other useful features as well, but it's probably easier for you to check those out for yourself. There's a demo video on that website showing you how the software works. It's not an expensive program and I highly recommend it because it's certainly helped me to get even more focus. Well, enjoy the extra time you grab back by using these time management techniques, and I hope to speak to you again soon. Bye.